I woke up by the wet grass soaking my backside. I tried to sit up, but my whole body was paralyzed. Slowly, I managed to move my toes and then my feet and legs. I got to a sitting position and opened my eyes once my head stopped spinning. There were trees all around. I got myself up on my feet and started walking, having no idea where I was or how I got here. A light was showing somewhere in the woods. Not knowing where else to go, I followed it. A thin black tree with shining red leaves was the source. Something about it dragged me closer, and I couldn't help but touch the leaves. They were hard and cold, like glass. On the other side stood a dark shadow. I noticed it as it was leaving the comfort of the trees. I turned and ran. There was no trail to follow, so I just ran through the trees. The thing behind me sounded heavy as it ran on all four. It leapt and I crawled into a ball as its claws scraped my back. I fell forward and rolled, falling into a hole. The creature stopped and walked past the hole a few times before running back towards the tree. I blacked out. I awoke to being dragged out of the hole by my arms. I screamed and flayed my arms to get free. A whisper came from the darkness. "Shut up. They will hear you." They got me out of the hole and helped me to my feet. A tall guy with long brown hair and a ponytail. "Can you walk?" he asked. I nodded. We started walking and he held his hand around my wrist, taking me through the trees carefully. I could hear animals moving around in the woods, but we didn't see anyone. We got to a clearing where an old watchtower was standing. He let go of me and walked to it, ringing a bell that was sitting at the bottom of the tower. Someone looked out of the tower and the guy waved. A rope ladder was thrown down, and we climbed up. At the top of the tower, there were 3 other people, a scared-looking boy, a boy with a hard face, and a girl who smiled at us. I collapsed the moment I took my foot off the ladder. When I awoke, the sun was high in the sky. It was only the girl there. She was brewing something that smelled like rotten eggs and blood. I almost threw up. "What is that?" I asked in a raspy voice. She looked over at me. "Oh, you're awake. How are you feeling?" "Not too well. My body is aching." She came over and sat down beside me. "You got attacked yesterday, right?" I nodded to her. "Where?" "In my back." "Take off your shirt. I need to see." I did what she asked of me. She trailed her fingers over the wounds and I flinched. "There are 8 of them," she said, taking out a bit of cloth and dipping it into the brew. She placed the fabric on my back. It burned. I let out a scream. "This is what we use for cleaning wounds we get from the creatures here. I'm Natalie. What's your name?" Jessica," I said. "It's going to be okay, Jessica. This will help it heal faster." She dipped the cloth and continued. "This is blood from one of the creatures. It's the only thing that heals these wounds." I recoiled and tried moving away, but she grabbed me. "Jessica, it's okay. I know it feels disgusting in the beginning, but I need to do this before it gets infected." I swallowed and let her continue. "What is this place?" I asked. "What is the last thing you remember before you got here?" Natalie said. "I went to bed on Friday and then I awoke in the woods." "Uh-huh, same for me. For all of us, actually." She put the cloth in a bucket. "I have been here for about 6 months, I think. Aiden is pretty new to this too. He has only been here for 2 weeks. Isaiah is the youngest of us. He's only 12. He has been here for about a year. And Tyler, the guy who saved you yesterday, he has been here the longest, almost 3 years." We heard something outside and Natalie went to look. She released the rope ladder and the boys climbed up. They had some food with them and some weird fabric. Tyler looked over at me. "Ah, good you're awake." Isaiah went up to Natalie and hugged her. Aiden gave me a nod and I nodded back. Tyler turned to Natalie. "Have you told her about this place?" "Not much. Thought it was better that you told her." The others went down, leaving Tyler and me alone in the tower. He threw the fabric at me. "Put this on." It almost smelled as bad as the mixture. Tyler took out a package of cigarettes and put one in his mouth. "Do you smoke?" he said, pointing the package at me. I took one. "Sometimes," I said. "How do you get all these things in the woods?" "From the people who own this place. This is a game to them. They leave things in the woods for us to find. Anything to keep the game going. I looked at him in confusion. Game? We're stuck in the woods. We just need to find our way back to civilization. He took a drag of his cigarette. I wish it was that simple. Everyone got here the same way. Went to sleep and then woke up in the woods. They were sold, including you, by their parents. His eyes pierced mine. My heart started beating faster. My parents wouldn't do that. They love me. Why would anyone sell their kids? I said, feeling my eyes sting. Tyler flicked his cigarette out the window. Some do it for money. They get an immediate payout depending on the age of the kid. Then they get more money for each day they survive. Others do it because they are sick of their kid, or even worse, because they are part of this twisted game. Tears filled my face and I was shaking uncontrollably. Tyler sat down in front of me and put his arms around me. It's going to be okay. I wailed and tried pushing him off me, but he held on tight, letting me get everything out. I don't know how long we were sitting there, but eventually I calmed down. My throat was burning and my body felt like I was going to pass out. Tyler gave me a minute to collect myself before we went down to the others. I sat looking at the bowl of food. It smelled good and looked like regular chicken soup, but I had no appetite. How do you do it? I said. The others stopped eating and looked at me. I shook my head. I mean, how do you deal with the fact that your parents sold you? Isaiah started crying. Natalie walked over to him and held her arm around him. They walked away to the watchtower and disappeared. I felt my cheeks burn in shame. Aiden put down his bowl on the ground and shrugged. My parents never liked me to begin with. They probably jumped at the chance to get something worthwhile from having me. Tyler put his hand on Aiden's shoulder and squeezed. So to me, it didn't take long to face reality. It's not like it's worse here than it ever was at home. But at home, you didn't have to fear for your life every day, Tyler said. Aiden took hold of Tyler's wrist and stared right into his eyes. You have no idea how hard each day at home could be. He grit his teeth, not to scream. But you're right, there is a big difference. Here I at least have the chance to survive. He let go of Tyler's arm roughly, looking over at me. I'm going to bed. Have a nice night. He gave me a weak smile and left. Tyler and I sat in silence for a bit, just staring at the woods. He gave a sigh and looked over at me. Most of us can't be sure why our parents gave us up, but in one way or another, it's about money. If they only wanted to get rid of us, there are better ways. Yeah, but how do you deal with it? It's hard enough to imagine anyone doing this to someone, but having your own parents do it. How do you live with that knowledge? Tyler took hold of my hand. It's not easy, but we don't have much of a choice. We have to learn fast if we want to survive. We can't waste our time feeling sorry for ourselves. It will kill us. Tyler stood and started cleaning up after dinner. You should finish your food. You're going to need your strength for tomorrow. I forced as much food down as I could before going to sleep in the watchtower. I was at home in my room reading when my mom yelled for me that dinner was ready. I walked down the stairs towards the kitchen when I heard my parents talking. I think she can be the one. My mom said, we have trained her longer than the others, so if it's not enough, I don't think we can have another. My dad said. My mom gave a sigh. Yeah, we are getting old. I threw open the door. The kitchen was empty. Outside was only darkness, and no sound could be heard anymore. I walked around the house, but no one was there. Behind me, I heard a window break, and all sounds came back at once. I turned around, and a creature jumped on top of me. I woke up in my own sweat. The other 4 were staring at me. What's going on? I lifted my head and looked at the others. You were screaming, Natalie said. I did? Looking down at my hands and then back at her. I was just having a nightmare. Isaiah walked over to me, giving me his stuffed animal. It was made from different colored fabrics sewed together to look as close to a teddy bear as possible. It helps me when I have nightmares, he said. Thank you. I smiled at him. I'm going back to sleep, Aiden grunted. I was awakened by Isaiah shaking me. The sun was almost all the way up and the others were gone. I was still holding the teddy bear. Thanks, I said, giving the teddy bear back to Isaiah. He smiled. What's its name? He looked into its face. Twinkie. We joined the others outside making breakfast. Isaiah ran over to Natalie and gave her a hug. Aiden gave me a bowl of what looked like porridge, and I sat down on the grass to eat. Natalie went around and gave all of us a piece of bread with butter, and we all ate in silence. When we were done eating, I got stuck with cleaning the dishes. Afterwards, we all got together to decide what needed to be done for the day. We got into 3 teams, Natalie and Isaiah to pick up the food package of the day, Aiden and I to hunt down a creature, to get more materials to make new clothes, Tyler alone to get materials to make more weapons. Aiden and I decided what weapons to bring with us. He told me that I should focus on bow and arrow, because it was my first time killing a creature. I also took a few knives. Aiden took a spear and a couple of knives. He asked me if I knew how to use the weapons. I told him that my parents had put me on training in different weapons, and also in different martial arts from a young age, so I knew how to fight in many ways. He gave me a funny look at that. What? I asked him, a bit too aggressively. He looked straight into my eyes. Don't you think it's weird that your parents taught you how to fight and then sent you here? What do you mean? It's good for a girl to learn how to defend herself. Yeah, that is true, but if they only wanted you to be able to defend yourself, it would have been enough for you to learn one thing and be done with it. I looked at him puzzled. It's like they have trained you for this your whole life, almost like they only got you for this moment. I bit my lip and looked away. I'm probably just overthinking it, he said with a chuckle. Aiden put his hand on my shoulder and gave me a big smile. Let's go. We don't want to stand around here all day. We did most of our hunting in silence. Tracking was one thing I did not have much experience in, but as luck would have it, Aiden was pretty good at it. He found footprints for us to follow, about 20 minutes into the woods. They were close to a bear, but longer like human feet, but it was definitely walking on all 4s. We walked slowly, trying not to give ourselves away. When we got close enough to see it, Aiden told me to stay there and be ready with the bow. I got in a position where I could see it well enough to shoot. The creature was standing with its back to me. Its legs were just bones, but its back had a thick layer of fur with the tail of a monkey. Aiden was creeping up on it from the other side and nodded at me. I raised my bow, placing an arrow in it. I drew it back and fired. The arrow flew forward, piercing itself in the back of the creature. It let out a loud roar, standing up on its back legs and turning its face towards me. We locked eyes. Its eyes were just 2 black orbs, making me feel like I disappeared into nothingness. Aiden jumped up on its back, breaking the spell. It fell forward back on all 4. Aiden raised his spear and brought it back down, breaking the skin. A thick, dark green liquid poured out. Aiden jumped down, taking out a knife in each hand. The creature looked angry. Its face was a human girl. It turned and jumped on top of Aiden, with the sound of breaking bones. I shook my head, getting control of the situation. I raised the bow again, letting the arrows rain over the creature. It didn't give me any notice. I could only see the creature, flailing its legs at the ground. I threw the bow to the side, jumping into the fight with my own knives. Both Aiden and I were panting, the creature lying dead beside us. How did you like your first hunt? Said Aiden. I thought we were going to die. I chuckled and he joined in. We both sat up and looked at each other. Neither one of us was badly hurt, just had some scratches. We carried the creature back to the tower. We were the first ones to return, and Aiden showed me how to harness the creature. Before we started, I asked Aiden why the creature had a human face. Aiden started showing me how to cut off the fur. It's because they all start off as humans. I stopped the cutting and looked at him. This is what happens to all of us if we get caught. They experiment on us until they can't do anymore, and then they let us lose to kill. What? I screamed. How can you kill and cut open one of us so calmly? He looked at me and said calmly, They are not human anymore. The experiments remove any humanity they once had. They only have their killer instinct left. But still, they have been through hell. I wouldn't want to be killed this way, and if I had known, I would never have joined in this hunt. Frustrated tears started covering my face. I would. After going through all of that and just being a mindless beast, I would be better off dead. I thought about it for a moment. Aiden was right. If I was just mindlessly killing everyone around me and my mind was long gone, then it would be better for everyone if I just died. I sigh. You're right. He smiled and continued with the creature. It doesn't really matter if I'm right. We still have to do it to survive. It's the only way to get fabric and blood. Aiden was almost done with the creature when Tyler and Isaiah returned. We could hear them before we saw them. Isaiah was screaming his lungs out, telling Tyler to let him down and how horrible he was. Both Aiden and I stood up when they came. Tyler let down Isaiah when he saw us. Isaiah ran over to us, crying his eyes out. Tyler just walked past us and took out the material he had gotten. "What's going on?" asked Aiden. "Where is Natalie?" He just shrugged his shoulders. Aiden turned to Isaiah and gave him a moment to collect himself. Creature got her," he said. "And he just left her there. She was still alive." We all turned to Tyler. He gave a loud sigh. "You should be happy I came when I did, or you would have been taken too." "She was still alive!" Isaiah screamed. "We could have saved her." "Not without risking ourselves. I haven't survived this long by taking stupid chances." "You always do that. Every month a couple of people are being taken and you just happen to be there." Aiden and I looked at each other, confused. "People die in places like this. There is nothing we can do about it," Tyler said calmly. "But they are our friends. We should be working together," Isaiah yelled. "They are no friends of mine. You are just people I happen to be stuck with. New kids come here all the time. If I want to survive, I can't afford to care." "How can you be so cold?" said Aiden, and spit towards Tyler before taking Isaiah's hand and walking with him to the tower. I stood staring at Tyler with an open mouth. "Don't look so surprised. You would have done the same if you had been here this long." I shook my head and followed Aiden and Isaiah to the tower. I had a hard time sleeping that night. I sat leaning on the wall in the watchtower, looking out the window into the dark forest. It was something nagging at my mind. I went over everything that had happened since I came here and realized what it was. I woke Isaiah, putting a finger in front of my mouth and pointing outside. We walked down the ladder as quietly as we could. We sat down under the watchtower, bringing our blankets. "You have been here for a while and have probably seen and heard a lot from the people here," I whispered. He nodded. "You said before that Tyler is always there when someone is taken?" He nodded again. "I think something weird is going on. I have a feeling that he is more involved in this than we know." Isaiah told me everything he knew about Tyler. Someone he had met when he first came here had told him that Tyler had sold himself here, but Isaiah didn't know if it was true. There were a few stories like the one that happened yesterday, where Tyler had interfered and let someone be taken, and even more where his partners had been taken. It happened at least a couple of times a month. No one had at least talked to Isaiah about not trusting Tyler. He had always been the leader, so everyone trusted him to know what was best for the group. We made up a plan to find out what Tyler really was up to. We snuck back into bed when the sun started to come up. In the morning, we acted like everything was normal and agreed when Tyler decided the plans for the day. He told the three of us that we should stay behind and make clothes and weapons, and he will go out and get the food Isaiah and Natalie should have gotten the day before. Once Tyler left, we filled Aiden in on our plan. We all went into the forest following Tyler's footsteps. The footsteps ended by the black tree with red leaves. This time, there was no creature in sight. Aiden said that we should hide until Tyler appeared again. We waited there for about 5 hours when the leaves started glowing. The light became so bright that we couldn't see anything, and then Tyler was standing there with a basket of food. He looked around before starting to walk back to our camp. We looked at each other. Aiden took the lead and led us back. We arrived before Tyler and Aiden took us to the weapons. "Each of you take a spear and get ready," he said. We positioned ourselves around the watchtower so we could not be seen. A few minutes later, Tyler walked into the clearing. He looked around, and when he saw that we hadn't done what he told us, he let out a sigh. He placed the basket beside the fur from the creature and yelled for us. I looked over at Aiden and Isaiah and nodded to both of them before we surrounded Tyler. He looked at us and the 3 spears pointing at him. "Is this a joke?" he said, laughing. "No, it's time for you to explain," said Isaiah with a shaky voice. Tyler pushed away Isaiah's spear and tried walking past, but Aiden and I walked closer, poking him with our spears. "You're going to answer our questions," Aiden said. "Fine," Tyler said, sitting down and crossing his arms. I sat down in front of him, laying the spear beside me. Isaiah sat down too, but Aiden kept standing. "Why were you by the black tree?" Aiden asked. "To answer that, I have to explain how I came to be here. It started 2 months before I got here. I have a little brother," Tyler said. He got lost in his memories. Aiden poked him in the chest with his spear. "Go on." Tyler stared straight into Aiden's eyes. "My family has always been poor. Most days we went without food. My dad worked as a handyman, but it didn't pay well, and my mother worked at a supermarket." Tyler let out a sigh before continuing. "About 3 years and 2 months ago, I woke up and my brother was gone. My parents had removed every trace of him. I talked to them about him. They told me to stop making up things like that. I thought I was going crazy." He shook his head. "No, I was going crazy. As the days went on, I couldn't shake him out of my mind. I knew I had a brother. The nightmares that came were the worst. I could barely keep track of what was real or not. I confronted my parents about it again, but this time I didn't give them a chance to lie. I waited for them to go to bed. Then I walked in there with my dad's shotgun. They hadn't fallen asleep and heard me walk in. My mother looked nervous, but my dad just smiled and asked me what I wanted." Tyler's voice shook as he continued. "I screamed at them to tell me where my brother was. My dad laughed at me and told me I didn't have a brother and never had one. I shot a bullet through the wall. My mother screamed, but my dad just laughed harder. I pointed the gun at his head. Tyler used his hand and pointed it straight at Aiden. 'The next one will go through your head.' Isaiah took hold of his arm and brought it down. My mom cracked after that and told me everything." Tears started falling down his face. "They had sold my brother. She said they didn't have a choice. It was the only way to get money to survive. How could they do that so easily? They didn't even seem to give a fuck." Isaiah and I held Tyler. Aiden lowered the spear. "Did you find him?" Aiden asked. Tyler looked up at him. "Your brother?" "Yes, I did. My mother gave me the number they had used to sell my brother. I used it to sell myself." "Why would you do this to yourself?" I asked before I could stop myself. Tyler stared at me. "How could I not? It's my brother. I would do anything for him." "I'm sorry, I didn't mean it like that," I said, taking hold of Tyler's hand. "What happened with your brother?" "I found him in the tower. He was so happy to see me." Tyler started crying. "For a few months, everything went fine. I protected him and tried to find a way out of here. Then one day he didn't return to the tower. I went out and looked for him, but once morning came, I understood that it was too late. I confronted the other kids in the camp. One of the girls came forward with a piece of his shirt. Tyler took out a piece of fabric from his pocket. I can't even remember her name." He chuckled. "But she didn't protect him. None of them had. I lost control and killed all of them." I let go of his hand and Isaiah got on his feet. "How could you do that to them? You're just as bad as the people who took us here," Isaiah screamed. Tyler stood up in front of him, clutching his hands. "How dare you compare me to them? I'm nothing like them. You really think I like hurting people? I just love my brother more than I give a fuck about you." Aiden stepped in between them. "Sit down," he said. I thought Tyler was going to attack him, but he changed his mind and sat down. I blacked out after that, and when I woke up, I was strapped to a chair in a white room. The wall opened and 2 people walked in. They each wore suits and a mask. One of the masks was a pig, and the other was a bunny. The pig put on a video showing me and my brother, from when we were kids and then from here. Once the movie ended, the bunny walked up to me, giving me a choice. I had destroyed the game for them. They couldn't get any more money. So they told me if I agreed to make a 5-year contract with them, they would make sure my brother was safe. Tyler said. What exactly did you agree to? I asked, disgusted. He avoided my eyes. It was simple, really. I would have to make sure specific people got captured, and in exchange, I would get to meet my brother once a week. And after 5 years have gone by, I will get to leave with my brother, he said. Aiden laughed. And you believe them? If you really believe they will let you go after, then you're even more stupid than I thought. Tyler was on his feet in seconds and punched Aiden in the face, took a hold of Aiden before he could punch back. It's not worth it, I said. The three of us went up to the tower, leaving Tyler to his own misery. Aiden was pacing around the tower. We need to be able to do something, I said. Shut up, I'm thinking, Aiden said. Isaiah and I sat quietly for a few hours, eventually falling asleep. I got it! We awoke with a jolt. But we are going to need Tyler's help. We continued like normal until Tyler got his next task. He told us about it at dinner. I was the target for the next day. We put Isaiah's plan into action. Aiden and Isaiah went together. Tyler and I went both alone. I walked around in the forest looking for food supplies when a creature walked up behind me. I let it jump me, and once I was under it, I put a syringe in it. I lay down and pretended that the creature had got me. We had gotten some blood to put on me. A few minutes later, 4 people with masks came and removed the creature from me. The 4 people carried me to the black tree. They pressed specific leaves on it, and it started to glow. They walked me to a white room and locked me inside. Once I was sure they had left, I walked to the door. It was a code look. Tyler had told me what the code would be. I opened the door just a crack and looked out. No one was in the corridor. I walked out and stayed close to the wall, staying in the shadows. I walked back the way we came. No one was walking the corridor. I soon found out why. A lot of sound was coming from one of the doors. I looked inside. It was a big cinema with 8 TV screens and one big one in the middle. It was filled with people in costumes and masks. The screens showed different parts of the forest, and the big one showed me scavenging for food. I could hear a few people talking. 2 voices caught my ear. It's so fun having a candidate here again, the woman said. The man laughed. After 20 years of this, we have enough to live any way we want, and thank God no children to steal it. They both laughed. My heart sank. My parents. Tears started falling, but I didn't have time to stand around. I got to the exit. I touched the leaves and returned to the forest. The others were waiting there as planned. I touched the leaves and the red light shined. Isaiah, Aiden, and I went down. Tyler stayed behind. When we got back in, we hid in an empty room close by. We waited for a few hours before we saw the bunny and pig come to the exit. A light later, Tyler was there too, with a blindfold on. We followed them at a safe distance until they came to a door. They went in and left Tyler there. Once we were sure that they were gone, we went to the door and let ourselves in. The room was completely black, the door locked behind us. A lamp was turned on. The room had a table with 3 chairs, and a glass wall with Tyler on the other side. Sit, he said. The pig and bunny walked in and stood beside him. Aiden was the first to sit, and Isaiah and I followed his lead. Aiden crossed his arms and stared right into Tyler's eyes. Of course, I told them. I would never sacrifice my brother for the likes of you. Tyler smiled. You guys didn't think it was going to be this easy? He laughed. I told them the first chance I got. Don't you think it was weird that no new people came here the last couple of weeks? Isaiah's bottom lip started shaking. I took his hand. This is not the first time someone has figured out what I do. I just never told the real rule about what happens if someone finds out. All I had to do was get rid of them. Tyler stood up and left out the door with the pig and bunny. Once they closed the door, smoke came down from the roof, and we all passed out. I woke up in a small room with only a bed. The pig mask was standing in front of the bed, staring down at me. I screamed. "Welcome to your next phase in life. Soon a doctor will come here and start you on your medicine." I opened my mouth, but he walked out before I could speak. My head hurt a bit, but I got myself to sit up. The doctor walked in wearing a bird mask. On the floor, he put a briefcase. Inside it were different bottles with pills. He picked up 5 of them and turned to me. "Jessica, this is your first time, so we will start off easy." He took out 5 pills and water. The door opened and a man with a bear mask walked in. "You're not supposed to be here," the doctor said. The bear rushed him, putting a syringe in his neck. The bear removed the mask. "Aiden!" I screamed, hugging him. "Shh," Aiden said. "We can't let anyone find out what is going on. Put on his mask." I did as he asked, and we went to look for Isaiah. In the next room, there was a person. It was hard to tell what age he was. He had hair growing out of his face. His legs were replaced with goat ones. "Please kill me," he said, muffled. I felt like throwing up. It was good it couldn't see me through its hair. I stood there frozen, contemplating how to help. Aiden just walked right to him and slashed his throat. I gasped. "Let's go," Aiden said, taking hold of my arm. This was the nicest thing we could do for him. Tears fell down my face as we walked out. When we came out the door, I saw 2 familiar faces, a wolf and a monkey. I started following them at a distance. They walked into a room and locked the door. I waited until the corridor was empty before I knocked. The wolf opened. "What do you want?" the wolf said. I pushed him inside. He fell to the floor with a thud. We walked in and closed the door before a woman ran in. I took off the bird head. Jessica? "Hi, Mom," I said with a sarcastic smile. She ran up to the wolf. "Are you okay, love?" she said. He nodded. "What have you done to him?" "Not anything close to what you have done to me all these years." Crossing my arms. "We never did anything bad to you. You're our daughter, so you should do what we tell you, just like with all our other kids." I shook my head. "Just give me your mask." "No, you're going to come with me back to the tower," she said roughly, standing up. I laughed and took a hold around her neck. "I'm never going to do anything for you ever again. You can either tell me where the mask is or I can rip your room apart." She was trembling. "Fine, it's in the bedroom." Aiden went and got the mask. I let her down. She slumped to the ground, crying. "I didn't think you had that in you," Aiden said once we were back in the corridor. "Neither did I." I laughed. Eventually, we found Isaiah's room. He was still passed out. Aiden took off his mask and shook him. Once he saw who was there, he ran up and hugged Aiden. "How did you get free?" Isaiah asked. "Yeah, how did you?" I asked Aiden. "I never trusted Tyler to help us. Not really. My plan was a bit different than I told you. I was planning to use Tyler to get inside, but I already thought he was going to betray us. So I hid a couple of pocket knives on me. I took down the man who came for me, and then I came to save you guys." "Oh," Isaiah said. "But never mind that now. We need to get out of here before they notice," Aiden said. "No," Isaiah said. "Not without Natalie." "But she's gone," I said. "We don't know that," Isaiah said and turned to Aiden. "She wouldn't leave us here without knowing for sure." "You're right," Aiden sighed. "Let's go." We went through all the experiment rooms looking for Natalie. We went through most rooms before we saw her. She was staring into nothingness. Her skin had a weird blue glowing color. I sat down in front of her. "Hey, Natalie," I said softly. She didn't react. I took hold of her arm and she screamed. Her eyeballs opened like eyelids, showing Katie's. "Who's there?" she asked. "It's me, Jessica." I took off the bird mask. She blinked and looked at me. "Jessica, what's going on?" "We're here to get you out," I said, gesturing to the others. She started crying, making a weird cat sound. I helped her to her feet and we got out of the room. We opened all the doors to the creatures, letting them out to the corridor. Soon an alarm was sounding and panic broke loose. People screamed for the doctor to help them. We just walked past them, dragging Natalie with us. The creatures attacked and killed the masked people. We followed the others to the exit. It was too full of panic, so no one could get out. Aiden pulled at me. "I think I know another exit," Aiden said. Aiden took the opportunity to show me the elevator behind the big screen. We left the masks behind and went in. It was dark outside, but the light from Natalie lit up the night. We turned our backs to that place and started our new journey.